This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Oh, take that. Oh, you... Oh. All right. Finally, I got the last one.
It's bad enough those little bastards are hiding the shelves and spying, but none of them would wear a mask either.
Whew. Hey, did you guys get the last of them? I made sure that the upper floor was clear.
Yeah, we're good. Jerry's filling up a garbage bag now.
Hey, you did the hard work. Who do you were that good with a machete?
Yeah.
Who knew that they would all converge and attack at once?
Well, once we realized they were all spying together and feeding information, it was only a matter of time before they attacked.
It's insidious. I mean, they convinced people it was a good idea to have them spy in their house, like Big Brother in disguise.
Oof. Who knows? That'll happen with all of the information they've gathered. What'll happen with all that information?
Yeah, one coordinated strike. They were relentless, like they felt no pain. And who's actually controlling them?
I don't know, but at least they're not trying to assimilate us. Could you imagine if they were like the Borg?
Ugh, I don't want to picture any of those little bastards in shiny spandex leotards.
Well, thank you for the nightmare fuel. And with that, welcome to the 418th episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. Tonight, we continue our examination of RPG opposition by looking at hive minds. Along the way, we'll take suggestions, questions, and comments from the chat room for life before jumping into the after show. But first, my name is Jerry.
My name is Phil.
And I am Old Man Logan. Welcome back from our holiday hiatus. Good to see you all here tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Both of you.
Both of you. And any lurkers that may be hiding in the shadows. Because you never know.
It's always hard coming back from hiatus to get the chat room populated again. This is the one downside to going on hiatus is that the chat room clears out. Plus, technically, it's holiday week.
Yes.
So for people who are listening to this, you're listening to this in January, but we recorded this on the 29th of December, or what is it? The 287th day of March,
like 400 and something. Yeah, it's March infinity. But anyhow,
anyway,
as per COVID protocols in New York State, we have to do a temperature check before we get started in House Misdirected. So, Phil, how you feeling?
I'm doing all right now. My sleep is a little junky, only because last week I was also off for Christmas. So I don't think I got my sleep schedule kind of back in order, because I'm working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I'm taking New Year's Eve off until until the 4th. So I've been doing a lousy job of going to bed last night, and I've been kind of dragging. So I am like mainlining caffeine. Like I've had, I think 2 zeros. I've got a large coffee. I haven't actually drank water. I'm a little nervous. Like I probably should.
Oh, you got to hydrate,
water
bro.
Into this. Yeah, like I got to hydrate up. Other than that, 5 weeks off was a nice break. Utilized my time. We'll talk about that in the community corner thing. So I'm okay. Like I'm okay mentally, and then physically. During those 5 weeks, a couple weeks ago, I hurt my back. Stupid muscle pull. I'm on the tail end of it. Like it's mostly healed, but my back is still like tired from having to kind of hold me up without that muscle in play. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm like in this place where like I can stand up and do things for a while, and then I got to go like sit back down. So I don't know. I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm not sick or anything, so
That's good.
That's the good news. You're not sick, and you're fairly mentally sound. So,
bubble is still mostly intact. My bubble is intact as it could possibly be. Right, as porous. Yeah. I mean, all bubbles are porous. My bubble is what it is.
Yeah,
and holding tight. How about you, my friend?
Which one?
How about you, my friend? How about you, my friend Jerry? Because you're on the top of my screen, and Bob is on the bottom of my screen. Bob is over here.
Yeah.
I hope I'm on top. I'm doing really well. We had a nice quiet Christmas. I actually twisted my ankle last week, but that's already done, taken care of. Lily got me on a couple of mild painkillers and wrapped my foot and everything, so I'm doing well. Other than that, it's been good. I've been trying not to munch too much garbage food because I've been off for 6 days now. We had Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, the weekend, and I took today and tomorrow off, or yesterday and today off, and then we're probably going to close the office down early on New Year's Day just so everybody can go home early. So it's been 2 short weeks for me. So I'm going to have to get back into the groove of working again, getting up and going to the office every day.
Oh, I know. It's insidious, right?
Yeah, it's not going to be too bad. But yeah, it's going to be an easy. This is a slow week for us. I guess 2 days ago, yesterday, I called the office at like 1:00. We had like two phone calls, so everybody was just doing organizing work and just getting caught up they wanted to do. So it'll be nice. How about you, Phil? Or how about you, Bob?
I am doing pretty good. Mentally, I think I'm probably close to the best I've been throughout the whole pandemic. Just because, all the different lights at the end of the different tunnels that we've been seeing, and the potential positive stuff coming down the road that I'm leaning into and stuff like that. So physically, feeling pretty good. My neck's been mostly cooperative. My back's been kind of, I got a muscle in my back that's just been kind of like, hey, I'm still here every once in a while. And,
yep.
But nothing that's like, to the point where I'm like cranky about pain or anything like that. So, fairly positive. Sleep's been pretty good. I had a couple of nights where I didn't sleep very well, over the course of the past 2 weeks. But for the most part, that's been good too. So feeling pretty good. So I think we can get this party started.
Circular.
Yeah. Feeling the flow. All right, let's bring this thing into the one thing, and I'll fire us off. How about I decided that now that I'm done with all of the animated Star Wars stuff that's on streaming services, I needed something short format to watch at lunch while I'm eating lunch on my lunch break at work, and so I decided to go back and pick up The Last Airbender again, nice. The original Avatar. Because I had started watching season 1 and I got some number of episodes through season 1. I have no idea how far I got, but I know I saw a bunch of it. And then I kind of tailed off. And now that it's all there and it's all streaming, I'm like, I'm going to go back. I'm going to watch all of Last Airbender. Then I'm going to jump in and do Legend of Korra and finish that all up. So
nice. So
yeah, watching The Last Airbender and enjoying that for what it is. It's an entertaining show, and looking forward to seeing how the story works its way through now that I am back in it. So that would be me.
That's a series I never got. I've only watched a couple episodes of it. It was always excellent. I just haven't gotten back to it. Looks like I'd be a lot of fun to watch again. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about the original, especially the later episodes, like the final season and stuff, like where the story went and how they wrapped it up and everything. I've heard good things. So, and Legend of Korra, I've heard a lot of people say it was excellent and it should have been longer than it was. Like, we want more. But you get what you get. You gotta take it and go. So,
yep.
How about you, Jerry? What's new? What's your one thing?
I watched Sweet Home, which is a Korean horror survival character drama about basically a pandemic that occurs and takes over an area in Korea, possibly more than that, but you don't really know. And where it starts out looking like it's going to be a zombie survival movie. And then it gets much, much, much worse because people don't just turn into zombies. There's tentacles and spider legs, and it's not like intestines all over the place, gory, but there's a lot of blood. So I mean, if blood gets you, but it's a really good character drama. They've got about 30 main characters, and they get a chance over 10 episodes to give them all some good use. And there's definitely some main characters, and of course, as with a lot of Asian horror. You don't count on anybody surviving, so you never know who's going to make it and who's not, which is a lot of fun. And so it's been very good. It was a lot of fun. It worked well. I made it 9 out of 10 episodes in before I realized there was a dubbed version, not just subtitled. But I watched the dubbed version, and the dubbed version was just as good as the subtitle. It was very well done. So it's good if you like The Walking Dead, but with characters that make more sense and don't make as many stupid mistakes. Then I would say Sweet Home is probably a good thing. If you like Lovecraftian survival horror, character study, or how to ramp up the tension in a storyline, I would say all three of those would be good things for the show.
If I've learned anything from 2020, I'm sure people are that stupid in a pandemic.
Yeah, I kind of.
Somebody's running around kissing that monster thing, being like, "I ain't getting it. It's just 5G hoax."
Yes, exactly.
Those aren't real zombies. Pff, that's a great makeup job.
Yeah,
I heard on Parler that this whole thing was just a hoax.
This has one of those things, kind of like I can't remember the name of the movie with Jodie Foster, where halfway through the movie, characters start acting stupid. And then 3/4 of the way through the movie, you realize, oh no, there was a reason why they were doing that. This has a little bit of that. There's some characters that make choices that seem a little bit out of character, but then you find out later on why they're doing them, and it makes more sense. I mean, some people just act stupid, but you'd expect them. There's one woman who's got her little tiny Shire dog, and that's her most important thing. She cares more about that dog than anybody else in the place, even her own survival. And we all know people that would be like that. So, that. Yeah.
I got a whole TikTok stream of people acting like that.
Mm-hmm. So it's, anyway, it's fun. It's creepy. It's dark. Would make for a great, RPG setting. And I guess they're coming up with season 2. So, it's definitely didn't go where I thought it was going to go. And I liked that too. So it was fun. If you like that kind of show, you probably have a good time with it. And as always, the people, monsters are horrible, people are worse. That's what all survival horror teaches us.
Yeah.
So, how about you, Phil?
I was trucking through. I'll talk about some of the other things I watched when we get to the conversation corner. Yeah. But I started watching The Umbrella Academy. I mean, I know it's not anything new, but I picked it up. I'm in the 2/3 of the way through season 1. I love it. It is exactly my kind of bullshit. I like it a lot. I really like the concept of child superheroes who are just fucked up from their childhood. Like, I really want to play a supers game that's based around that. Like, hey, you were a child superhero and you are fucked up because of it. Like, you are not okay. And just kind of seeing how that all manifests. The characters are great. It's got a cool style to it. It's weird in a good way. It is a convergence of a lot of things I like. It's got some dark humor. It's weird. I love the idea of traumatized superheroes. Like, ever since the MCU embraced Tony Stark as PTSD instead of alcoholic, like he was just like, it's one of the things I love about the MCU is that Tony is like so fucked up from what happened in Manhattan. And all he does is double down on one bad decision after another. Yeah,
this without spoiling anything, I just finished watching season 2, and it's even more over the top than season 1.
No, that's all right.
Yeah. And it was created by one of the guys from the band My Chemical Romance, the guy who wrote it.
It's quite enjoyable. Yeah. I'm enjoying it, and the Netflix production of it's really is really slick. So
one thing, 2 years ago at Breakout, we did the basically like the practice. Game designers came and let us try their board games. I think some of us were part of that. The guy who ran the board game we did is the guy who did all the tentacle animation for the Umbrella Academy. So he's going to be coming out with a board game this year.
Neat.
Yeah.
Neat. All right, cool. That's it for our one thing, because we got a couple of announcements, and then I want to pile into the actual show topic tonight. A couple of announcements. I'll run through them really quick. The DS9 Watch Party is into week 19. Holy shit!
That's a lot of weeks.
19 weeks. We are rounding the corner on the end of season 6. We will get just up to the edge of it before week 20. The week 20 watch party is the season 6 finale and the season 7 opener. But tonight we open with the watch party tonight is my all-time favorite DS9 episode, period, which is in the Pale Moonlight.
Yep.
In the Pale Moonlight it is my favorite episode, hands down, period. I'm hoping that when we watch it tonight, everybody will enjoy it. And then we meet the last minor character in the episode that follows that, called His Way. Okay. No spoilers, but this is the last significant minor character added to the show. And I personally...
there's one more minor character that kind of gets added at the beginning of season 1 or season 7.
I think you're thinking of a major character.
Oh yes, okay, yes, major character. I apologize. Well,
yeah, as far as minor characters go, I did not see this one coming. And when this character was introduced, I thought, oh, cute throwaway. The character did not just disappear. I thought it would be like a one and done. And this character ends up becoming a very popular character. So I hope everyone enjoys it.
We'll throw no more on it.
No more, that's it.
We'll talk a little bit more about it next week.
But that's good.
And then on top of that, one of my... So, like, I've realized, and I've said this before, that, you know, season 5 TNG is what I consider peak TNG in terms of storyline. Season 6 DS9 is peak DS9.
Yeah.
The storylines are so good. Also in our list this week is Valiant. I don't know if you remember this episode, but this is in my top 5 favorite episodes as well. And it is, there's a grittiness to DS9 that you don't get in the other Trek series. And Valiant is an excellent example of the grittiness of these last couple of seasons. Anyway, I'll say no more about that other than we've got, I think it's 5 more weeks and then we complete the watch party for DS9. We'll talk about in the community corner, I'm almost done watching all of Voyager. So a Voyager show list is almost compiled.
Yay.
Right. Next one up, Bundle of Holding, because we talked about it a bunch. Bundle of Holding has Traveler Little Black Book bundle.
Yep.
And it's like fucking all of them.
Yes.
It's like a bajillion little black books.
It's like all of the little black books.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It's a lot. It's very reasonably priced.
There's some good stuff in there too.
If you are a Traveler fan or Traveler curious or whatever,
or sci-fi gaming fan.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some good stuff in here. All right. Last one I wanted to highlight, which was a thing that I stumbled across on Twitter, went and downloaded it, and then it blew my mind away. And then I was like, well, shit, I'm going to talk about it on this show.
As soon as you made your post on Twitter praising it, I went and I looked at it and went, holy shit. And I downloaded it. It's it's called,
it's Sophie's Dice. It is an application for iOS, for Android. You can get it on Steam, which means you can get it like on your Mac or PC. And I don't remember if there's any other platforms it's on.
Itch.io.
Oh, and you can get it through Itch, which Itch just gets you the Steam key, I think, is if I remember correctly. This is a dice roller. It is, it is a dice roller. I've had many dice rollers since I first bought my iPad. I have never seen a dice roller that one looks this good. Like, these dice look fucking amazing.
Yeah.
On top of it, it is, you can customize your own set of dice. You can color them. You can pick their textures, all of that. Like, you can make your own set of dice and put them in a dice pouch that is in a toolbar at the bottom of the app.
Yep.
And I don't know if you noticed this. I went into the customization thing. Did you see how many dice shapes are in there?
I did not go that deep yet, no.
So let me tell you, if you wanted to make all your DCC dice,
nice,
they're in there.
Nice.
In fact, there's a command line interface where you can just type in, 4D, like 4D4, and then it'll roll 4 4-sided. If you put in 1D17 or 1D24, it will roll a 1D24 that looks like all of your DCC dice.
Fabulous.
It is the shit, and it's like $3.99.
I paid it was like $2.49, I think.
Okay, that's what I think it might even be on sale right now. Like,
it's $3, and then you can. It's minimum $3. You could add, like I added a little bit extra for the owner. You could add a little bit extra.
I bought it. I think $3.99.
$3 right now.
Right, so I think you bought it through Itch.
Yeah,
I bought it through the iOS App Store.
I bought it through Google Play on my phone.
Yeah, like, look, I can't say enough nice things about this. I've had a number of online dice rollers. I've never seen one that's this good.
Now, to be fair, when I say it's one of the best, it's like the best dice roller I've ever had on my phone. All the other ones that I've ever done were all free. And some of them had some features that were similar and stuff like that. But for the money, not a lot of money, and this thing is fabulous. It's got a ton of features, and it's so good.
So we're getting a question from Professor Fox. Does this dice roller have Star Wars? I don't remember if the Star Wars ones are coded in, but the customizable dice also allow you to put symbols on them. So if they don't have them, you could build them in the thing. Oh, and here's another thing. I read this on the web page because it doesn't say it in the app. All of the dice configurations are in an XML file that you can share with people who have the app.
That's
so
brilliant.
that right. So if somebody builds those dice, you can just extract the XML file and give it to somebody, and now they have them too.
There you go. So if you want a dice roller for a bunch of different platforms that's fully customizable, show Sophie Holden some love and go and get this Sophie's Dice app. It's fabulous.
I seriously, I can't say enough. I can't say enough nice things about it. It's ridiculous how good it is. Yeah, it's fantastic. Okay, cool. I just had to say it because I just stumbled onto it a day or two ago, and I was like, I loaded it up and I've been playing with it. And I'm like, this app is stupid good. It is well done, and it looks good. You can, I don't know if you tried some of these features. I guess I'm still talking about it. You can pick up the dice. You can pin dice down so that if you're doing something like a push kind of thing, if you're doing a
I'm going to save these 4 dice and roll the other 6 again.
Yep.
Nice.
It does exploding dice. Because you can program them to explode.
And if you've got an iPad or a phone or whatever, you can shake it to make them roll and all of those.
I didn't even know that. Can you do that with just shake the phone?
Yep. Yeah, good stuff.
Chef's Kit. It's so good. Sophie's Dice. We will have a link in the show notes.
Yes.
Sorry, I got really excited there.
That's all right.
It's good.
It's a cool app.
So, you know what time it is?
I do know what time it is.
It's time for you to wet your whistle.
Yeah, let me just get a pre-soak. Very nice. Okay.
Here we go. It's time for the workshop.
Workshop! Workshop! It's the Hive Mind! Join the Hive Mind. Think as one, act as one. The Hive Mind will control everything. Learn how to run it the best in your game. The Workshop!
Don't suck. All right.
Woo! Okay.
We're back, folks.
It's good to have the workshop back. It's good that we can hear it again. All right. So we're on a return for a vacation. We're going to do another entry on our ongoing series on GMing adversaries. And tonight we're going to look at the Hive Mind. We're going to talk about what they are, how do they work, and how do you get the most out of them in your game instead of just making them a generic adversary. So, Phil?
Yes. So, Phil, sometimes Hive Minds and Puppet Masters get confused. Do we have a good definition we can use to better separate these similar but different adversaries?
Do we ever?
Do we ever? Well, then I should play this then.
Behold! You are in the presence of Definition Panda.
All right. There can be some confusion about the hive mind and the mastermind. Mastermind, as you recall, we just did, I think, was it just the last episode, 417?
Puppet Master, yeah.
I think, Puppet
Yes.
Master, right? Puppet Master, I think, was, I don't remember. Anyway, go back and look in our...
Puppet Master was the last one.
Okay, yeah. Puppet Master was our last episode before we went on vacation. So go take a listen to that if you want to know more about the Puppet Master. But let's start by just defining the hive mind. And at the end of this, I'll separate out the difference between the two. So the hive mind, defined as a unified consciousness or intelligence formed by a number of alien individuals, the resulting consciousness typically exerting control over its constituent members. I got a lot of things in here I like. So in order to make this work for us, I'm going to drop the word alien because that it could be any species, right? We don't have to limit it to alien. That definition I pulled was more of a sci-fi definition. But let's get into a couple of key phrases we want to tease out of this, right? Unified consciousness or intelligence, right? And this is the defining piece of the hive mind. What it means is that its members that make up the hive mind are one connected consciousness, right?
Yep.
They're not really individuals. Their acting is one mind. And then the other part is exerting control over members, right? So the unified mind then in turn controls all of the members. So the hive mind is like a central control that coordinates its members as one body. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So compare that out to the Puppet Master, right? The Puppet Master, as we talked about in our, a few weeks ago, the Puppet Master is a single mind that has control over its members. So it exerts control over its members. But the Puppet Master is, as I said, a single mind, and it gives orders to its thralls, but the thralls aren't necessarily a unified consciousness. Right? They're just being directed. It is a puppet, right? The Puppet Master pulls strings. The hive mind is one giant intelligence.
Yes. Sounds good. So some hive mind examples will include the Borg from Star Trek.
Of course.
One of everybody's favorites, I believe. The Stepford Cuckoos from the X-Men. That was three? Was it three of them?
Yep.
The triplets?
Yep, the three girls.
Yep. Yeah. The Invid from Robotech, the Kaiju in Pacific Rim, the Bugs in Starship Troopers, which were a lot of fun, and Unity from Rick and Morty. That was some wacky stuff.
Yes. That's a dark episode.
Yes,
man.
it is.
It's a dark episode.
All right. So with that definition and all that cleared up, Jerry, what can you tell us about what makes up a hive mind?
Well, first of all, the hive mind is all about a single mind operating through multiple individuals. There are things that are going to best define what makes a hive mind a hive mind. Sure,
right? And the first one is going to be a single mind, right? There is one mind at the quote center of the hive mind. So this mind can be made up of a combination of all the individual minds that are part of the hive. So like in the case of the Borg, right? Like all their minds connected make up the hive mind. Or it can be a single central mind in a location. And I think the best example I saw of that when I was looking these up is the Kree Supreme Intelligence is a hive mind. But it is like, but it's not a, it's not enormous, right? Like the Borg is enormous, right? The Borg is like sector upon sectors of drones where the Supreme Intelligence is obviously smaller. Like it's more like fits in a room kind of thing.
Now, question, where does the Borg Queen fall into all this?
So a hive mind can have a like a face or a orchestrator, right? Like if you watch, and I don't think you get this out of TNG as well as you get it out of Voyager, the Borg Queen is part of the hive mind, but also is like the first among equals of the hive mind. So they're all interconnected. She can hear all their thoughts, but she will often guide them or, provide some sort of, direction. But they're all part of the hive mind.
Okay.
That's not a requirement. You do not have to have one of those. You can have one of those. And I think, did we put it further down the list? We did.
Yeah, it's in here.
Yeah.
Cover that at the end.
I just was wondering because you mentioned the board being a hive mind without a center, and then I was wondering if the queen counted as that center or not. So, because I don't know as much about Star Trek as you guys do. Which I'm slowly learning. So next thing, though, is that generally a hive mind is going to have some drones, and the mind is going to operate a number of drones. This could be anywhere from a few, 1, 2, 3, up to millions and millions. And the drones are often the agents for how the hive mind acts in the world. They could all be the same, or they could be different based on whatever needs or purpose come up. You could have worker drones and warrior drones and psionic drones and chef drones or whatever you like.
Yeah, absolutely. The hive mind has some sort of link, right? There is some sort of way that all the minds link up together. That link could be magical. It could be psionic. It could be technological. And the presence of a link also infers that it may be possible to disrupt the link. A thing we'll get into a bit later as we talk about them as adversaries.
All right. Next is they're going to have some sort of superior abilities. There are going to be advantages to having a brain that's that large. That could be super smart. They might have vast knowledge. They kind of have vast input of information. They might have psionics, magic. They might just have a very strong will. They might have the ability to coordinate so well that they're constantly, out-tacticking people.
Yeah.
So it's going to be something in them that makes them superior and therefore generally terrifying.
Exactly. The hive mind often has a way to grow. So this might be a way to replace lost drones, or it might be a way to increase the number of drones, right? So if we think about the Borg from Star Trek, right? The Borg find a civilization that it finds worthy, and then it assimilates that civilization, as in it turns them into drones, joins them to the hive mind, and now those drones are now also part of the Borg. Mm-hmm. Right? So that way of growth could be a ritual. It could be a virus. In the case of the Borg, it is nanites. Mm-hmm. Borg nanoparticles are responsible for converting you over to a Borg.
All right. The next thing is they're going to have some sort of purpose. This is going to be their purpose for existing. They're going to have goals. It could be something as simple as add everybody to the hive mind, or it could be something like to amass knowledge. It could be to overcome what it sees as injustices. Could be anything in the world, but generally they're going to have some sort of goal that they're working towards. And this means that this goal could often be disrupted. And in many cases, they're going to be motivated with simply a drive to increase their numbers. And in almost all cases, this is non-consensual increase.
Yes, the Borg does not ask. The Borg does not ask if you would like to be added to the collective.
Pardon me, sir. Would you like to be assimilated?
In fact, their opening line, right, is
resistance.
Their opening
futile.
few lines, right? Resistance is futile is a sign that this will be a non-consensual assimilation. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then finally, to go back to what Jerry was saying, a hive mind can have a face or coordinator. While the hive mind operates as one mind, there may be a special drone or member that operates as a face, somebody that speaks for the collective, right? Operates as some sort of coordinator. In TNG, that was Locutus, right? So when Picard was converted to a Borg, he was there specifically to be the on-ramp for humans, for assimilating humans. Mm-hmm. And then later in the movies and then in Voyager, we meet the Borg Queen, who is, who plays this role for the Borg as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now that we know what makes up a hive mind, why do we like them, Phil?
Yeah. Right. Why do we like them? I mean, clearly we like them because there's plenty of examples of hive minds, right?
Yep.
And I think that the appeal to a hive mind is the idea of uniformity, right? We live in a world of individuals and a certain amount of chaos that comes with having individuals, in the world. A hive mind is like the opposite of that, right? It's a group that acts as one. And I think that we find this to be fascinating and terrifying, right? I see Senda was saying it's terrifying. It is terrifying.
I just find it terrifying. I don't find it fascinating at all.
Let me make my case for why it might be fascinating on some level, and then Jerry's going to make the case about why it's terrifying.
I don't find it appealing in a fascinating nature. I find it only fascinating because it is terrifying. I'll
Maybe my type A personality likes the idea of this, right? Like, and I'll tell you what I think is fascinating about them is the efficiency of a hive mind, right? So many drones operating in chorus, right? If you think about it, humans like watching multiple individuals operating in and acting in chorus, right? Think of things like the Blue Angels, right? The performance flying, marching bands. Marching bands are individuals acting in chorus. And the one that utterly fascinates me now are those synchronized drone displays. Have you seen those?
Not yet, no.
Where they take like 100, 200 drones with lights and they run them through patterns that look like fireworks or whatever. They can, they make shapes, whatever. If you saw the Biden acceptance speech, they had a whole a coordinated drone display making shapes. They can make whatever. Anyway, many people find these things to be, interesting or fascinating. And I think it's because we know in real life how difficult it is to get any group of people to do anything synchronized, right? Like, I mean, this is my whole life, right? As a project manager, is trying to get people to be organized to do stuff. So I find things like this to be fascinating because the amount of effort it takes to make these things happen in concert is quite a bit. And so in the hive mind, this is a thing that can actually just produce that.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the drone thing is less impressive to me because it's all programmed by computer.
Yeah.
But
it's a hive mind, right?
It is. But
each one is feeding data to a central processor that's taking all that data and spacing them and arranging them in a 3-dimensional pattern in real time.
Absolutely.
It's pretty impressive.
You can't take that away. No, definitely. But to me,
go ahead.
Like more impressive, this doesn't qualify as a hive mind, but for coordination, when you see a flock of starlings all changing course and doing their thing, like that's ridiculously amazing to me, watching them all just whoop.
Right. And on some level, they're communicating that to each other, right? Like there's something that's going on there, and it's not magical or anything, but there are visual cues that they're picking up from each other to know how to do that.
How do we know it's not magical?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't.
Because drones are less impressive because drones don't have an innate intelligence and spirit to have been subverted in the first place.
It's fair.
Drone better.
Where if you force people to do that sort of thing, that's a totally different situation.
Right. To my point, though, we like we like precision. We like choreography and precision.
Yes, that is interesting.
Okay, but we also have to acknowledge that hive minds are terrifying, right, Chair?
Yes, because we value being individuals. We have our own personalities. We have our own private thoughts. And these things are gone when you're part of a hive mind. And in many cases, drones have no individuality, like a Borg drone. And this terrifies us. The idea of not being us or having us be obliterated to be part of a hive mind is terrifying. Anybody who grew up as a geek in the 80s knows what it's like when a large group of people try to force you to be like them. And that's terrifying.
Yep.
Peer pressure, baby.
So yes, I find them to be absolutely terrifying.
So in this case, you will enjoy the parts of Voyager when we get to 7 of 9, because 7 of 9 is a drone that is saved.
Yeah. I'm very interested in seeing that because the few episodes of Voyager I saw with 7 of 9, she was the most annoying character for me on the show, but I only saw a couple episodes. Watching her in Picard, I thought, oh my God, this character's really interesting. So now I want.
We'll see where you fall on that.
So now I want to see that.
Picard's like 30 years after Voyager.
Yeah, there's a lot happening in between.
Yeah, we'll see what they do. So I expect that just like every show, watching it all the way through from the beginning, I will have a better appreciation of it.
Yeah.
And I think it will be a lot more fun to watch with the editorializing that's been going on as well. So I'm looking forward to it, and I expect to be pleasantly surprised by what comes out.
Same here.
I certainly like 7 of 9. I certainly like 7 of 9 more now that I've watched through the series.
Yeah.
All right. So add to that, right? So the precision, the coordination, the terrifying part of erasing people's individualities, add to that some other superior abilities like vast knowledge, like some of the things that we mentioned earlier. And our hive mind is like, we regard it with some awe and some terror.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes a great recipe for making good adversaries in your game. So, Jerry,
that's right.
How can we make a hive mind good opposition?
Well, I think that they make great opposition because they're going to have plenty of superior abilities, lots of cannon fodder to throw at the characters, which can be good and bad. They can be used in a couple of ways. First, Phil?
Yeah, so first of all, you can do a very simple storyline, which is just resist drones, right? Like resist the drones, where the focus of your story is that the hive mind is your opposition, and you are fighting off a group of drones, preventing them from achieving some objective. And I think you can just best think of that as like how the Borg was used in Next Generation, right? Like if you look at those, the handful of encounters with the Borg, it's not really anything but kind of resisting the Borg. Well, there is another way to use them, though.
Yep, and you can also use the hive mind in a way that you have to destroy the hive mind, where the focus of your play is going to be to destroy the hive mind itself. And I'm going to take Phil's word for this, that this is how the Borg work in Voyager.
Well, here's the thing about Voyager, right? Without giving any spoilers. Voyager, so where DS9 unpacks Bajorans and Cardassians and Ferengi in great detail, Voyager, the latter half of Voyager, unpacks the Borg in great detail. So you get like a lot more Borg stories.
That's not a selling point for me, but I'll still give it a shot.
So,
now my thing is, and what we did, one of the problems with drones is that oftentimes drones, if they can be unhived, make for very dangerous opposition because the players may be reluctant to simply slaughter them wholesale.
Yep.
What happens when, the player's mother, brother, children, pet dog, whatever, become part of the hive, and now they're coming after you. You can't just gun them down or depending on your relationship with your family, but generally you don't want to gun them down.
Right.
And that becomes a thing. So I think that's what kind of makes them more interesting. It's something that you don't see. I mean, they were reluctant to do away with Picard, but generally when the Borg show up, the Federation and everybody else just pretty much slaughter them wholesale because they can't risk being careful with them. And
Correct.
that makes for a very interesting dichotomy that you get when dealing with them because they're cannon fodder, but they're not cannon fodder that the players can necessarily throw away the way the hive mind can. And that can add to some really good role playing.
You get into some ethical things. There's the season 6 opener to Voyager has some really ethical things about the destroying Borg and stuff like that, where you're just like not 100% sure I'm okay with all of this. Yep. Anyway, so we talked about two different storylines or two different plots you can do with the hive mind. And like we've said in previous installments of this segment, with these oppositions, you can have the hive mind be the focus of a story, an arc, or a whole campaign.
And in the story, you're better off just having them resisting the drones. But arc or campaign, you can go deeper and deeper and you can work to destroy the whole hive mind.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you can't have a one shot that's about like destroying the hive mind, but you haven't really done any investment.
I think a little bit's going to, we're talking this later on, I think a little bit depends on just how invested the players are in that particular story.
Well, I think that's always true, right? Like But what I'm saying is like, if you just have like a one shot adventure that's like, hey, we're destroying the hive mind, of this, of this, we're destroying this hive mind. You're like, okay. Right. But if you have like an arc that's been building up to this with skirmishes with drones and you've done your research, and we'll talk about this in a minute, like, I think this is a better investment. So my recommendation, right? Our recommendation here is like, if you're going to do a one shot, just resist some drones. They're terrifying enough. Okay. So when we look at a hive mind as opposition, we need to, as we're setting up our hive mind, we need to determine a few things. And I recommend having a rough idea or better for the following things when you put a hive mind into your game.
First is have some stats for that hive mind. Is it a separate physical entity? And if so, what are its stats? If it's not, how does it work? And then what are its special powers?
Have stats for your drones, right? What can a drone do? What advantages do drones have when operating or fighting as part of the hive mind? Is it something like drones always assist each other in tasks? Drones always flank, when they're in combat, something like that. Right? What's part of that special thing?
Yep. Number 3 is, where is the hive mind? Where is it located? How difficult is it to get to? What kind of defenses is it going to have? What's going to keep it from being overwhelmed initially?
Yep. What is the nature of the link? Like, I think this is one that people will gloss over if they're whipping up a hive mind. But I will tell you that the earlier you know this and put this in your pocket, the better it'll be, because your players will wind up eventually wanting to know this, right? So what is the nature of the link? How is the hive mind put together? Can the link be disrupted? That is going to be a big question. Players will ask this question at some point. What happens to the drones if the link is disrupted, right? Like, is something, does something bad happen? Does the drone become an individual, or does the drone just shut down? I mean, we've seen many cases, you see many sci-fi tropes where you destroy the hive mind and all the drones drop dead. Like, episode 1, right? The droid army, right? On the fight on Naboo. Like, once the hive mind, which was the ship, was destroyed, they all just stop, right? They just fall over.
The Chitauri in the Avengers.
But in TNG, in the episode with Hugh, right? When you sever the link, you recover the drone. Yeah. With some trauma, but you recovered the drone as an individual. So understanding the nature of the link for your hive mind is going to be very important.
Oh, yeah. Very, very important. All right. And lastly, how does the hive mind repair itself or grow? Does it simply assimilate others? Does it hatch new drones? Can it grow? One of Bob's early examples is Stepford Cuckoos, which are 5 quintuplets in the Marvel Universe that are, I think they're clones of Emma Frost, that all have one shared mind. And early on, 2 of them get killed, and now there's only 3. And they can't really make more of themselves, at least as far as I know, and how Marvel Universe may have gone on from there. So that's interesting. As they go, can you sever their link? What happens when they're severed? And can they make new drones? All become things that become important as what happens. So it's something to look at.
Oh, Senda and Andy are talking about the Great Link from DS9, the Changeling's Great Link. So I think this is actually this kind of tucks in nicely with the 2 things that we're talking about here, which is it is definitely a hive mind when they're connected, yep. Right? When they are all together, like in the ocean of them, they are definitely a hive mind. But when they are separated from the link, they are definitely individuals acting on their own until they rejoin the link. And there's a really good, I want to say it was one of the more recent episodes where Odo and the female changeling, who I don't think ever gets a name, they kind of talk about being they are both the link and not the link when they're in the single form. But yeah, it's interesting. Now, in the case of changelings, it's not clear if changelings reproduce. We know that Odo and 99 other changelings were shot out into space, but like they don't like divide and make two. Yeah. Or two of them twist together and then a third one comes out.
Yeah, somehow they generated new baby versions and sent them out.
Right, and that may be a function of being in the Great Link, that individuals can't create other other ones, but they can, as a group, create another one. Right, they found the baby one, which I think Odo says is one of the 99 that were sent out.
Yeah, that's the assumption that everybody made.
Yeah.
Now, I have two more things. One is a question for you. What about for Star Wars? What about the battle droids? Because sometimes
that's what I was saying before.
Sometimes they're a hive mind, sometimes they're not.
Right, but so they must be on some level a hive mind, because and again, not that Star Wars science is super solid, but if you look at the Battle of Naboo in Episode 1, the destruction of the ship in orbit renders all of the droids powerless. They all shut down.
Yep.
If you look at just that battle, it would appear that they are, that battle droids are drones to whatever central command and control is on the ship. But I would hazard to say that each ship is a command and control for a certain number of battle droids, which is why in the second movie, when there's like multiples of those ships, and they're getting destroyed in the big battle, that droids are still fighting.
Yeah.
But again, Star Wars is terrible about its own science and then even adhering to its own science.
Yes.
So I try almost never to use Star Wars science as a example for that. At least Trek often had story Bibles and stuff for writers, so that there were like certain things that are known and stuff like that.
Star Wars has that now, but that's the story group now. So
yes. By the way, I would literally kill to get my hands on a DS9 story Bible. Like that would. I'm just throwing that out to the universe.
Yeah.
Anybody's got a lead, let me know. I would kill to put my hands on a story Bible for that TV series. All right.
I think we got a little off the track.
One more hive mind just to toss out for everybody that's actually role-playing game related is that in Traveler 2300, the pentapods are a hive mind.
There are like 6 people that listen to this podcast that'll even understand that. And I'm one of them. There are 5 more people.
One of the alien races
know what 2300 is.
One of the alien races in Travel 2300 is a group called the Pentapods. And later on, you find out that they're all just drones for one giant Chthonian creature that is sent out, and that they all send back information. And it's up to the GM whether or not this is benign or not.
Traveler 2300 is a game from the late 1980s made by GDW that was a variant of Traveler. It was hard sci Traveler. Is what it was. Super hard sci-fi Traveler, but its only one claim to fame is that it shares the same timeline as Twilight 2000.
And it had a very offensive alien race name that they never go back and change.
Oh God, that's right.
Yes, that's right. That just came up. They real quick they named one of the alien races, and they named it a slang term that is the South African version of the N-word.
Yes.
And that's what the aliens are called.
Yes. I always wondered what the hell was going on with that book as a kid.
I don't understand how that slips through anybody's editor.
Well, I mean, it slips through in as much as like that game is like dust right now. Like
that game is also colonialism taken to the nth degree. So
there's nothing inherently good about 2300. It's
the rules were good.
Right, that's a good segue to wrap right back into our notes.
Yeah, can you kick us back into the segment, Bob? Please. Thank you.
Is that where we are?
Yes. Now that we know some things about the hive mind.
Yeah. We need to give it a purpose, right? We need to give some goals, which is not unlike other forms of adversaries, right? Adversaries without goals is pointless, right? You need them to do something, right? And then in your storyline, right? In most cases, the players are going to first come in contact with the drones, right? You don't usually stick the hive mind out where PCs can poke it
Yep.
with sharp pointy things.
Mhm.
That's what you got drones for.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to do that typically first.
And so as a result, you're going to need to kind of lay this out in some sort of a story plot. If your main story is going to be able to resist the drones, you need to plan out a few things. First is going to be, what's the objective of the hive mind? And then secondly, how many of these drones are actually going to be out there? These stories are often going to be won by attrition, so having some threshold. At what point, how many number of drones will you as a GM know whether the players are actually successful or not? Is it 5 drones, 10 drones, 10,000 drones? At what point have the players succeeded at this particular storyline mission?
Yeah. If your story's about destroying the hive mind, though, then this is like this starts to take on an arc more like the Puppet Master, which we talked about previously, right? You're going to have an encounter with the drones, right? You're going to then you're going to, eventually the story's going to change over to finding the hive mind. Along the way, industrious characters are going to look for a way to disrupt the link. It is almost inevitable. This is why we say early on, like, plan out the link, because...
Yep.
Go ahead, Jerry.
And this is where the players are going to have to be able to get their upper hand or level the playing field. You want to know how the link works, what happens when the link is broken, and also, how can the players break the link? Those are all big things you need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is, otherwise they're just they're running up against this, hyper competent, massive sized opposition. Like, there needs to be a way to level this out. All right. And then your climax, right, of this arc or campaign is going to be the assault on destroying the hive mind, which will almost inevitably involve disrupting the link to get the upper hand.
There you go. All right, so the hive mind obviously makes a natural opponent, but are there ways to use it as an ally, Jerry?
Yeah, it's possible. It's not very common, but it can be possible. First of all, as an ally, if a hive mind is operating with the same goals as the characters, then they can work very well along the way. They can be there to provide information. If they have drones, the drones can be there to assist the players. And much like the advice with the Puppet Master, under no circumstances should the characters be drones under the control of a hive mind. Absolutely none of them. Because drones don't have individuality and free will, and taking those away from the players is wrong. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't, for the same reason that you don't make your characters puppets of the Puppet Master, you do not make your players, you do not make the player characters drones. But as an ally, right, the hive mind could be of a great resource, right? They might know a lot of stuff, right? I mean, they got a big brain, right? So they might have access to skills that players lack. Like, they can read this ancient text because they assimilated that culture eons ago. This is a thing you see in Voyager with 7 of 9, right? Like, she'll name different species and be like, we assimilated them like in time index whatever, and knows something about them.
In addition, the drones can provide lots of intelligence, giving the characters eyes and ears in all sorts of places they couldn't normally go.
And of course, a network of drones can be backup for the characters. Getaway drivers, muscle, an assault team that the characters are leading, whatever. Like, if you need bodies, your ally, the hive mind, has got drones to provide.
And so that's our basic overview of the hive mind. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to check with the chat room and then come back for a roundtable discussion. But first, Bob is going to tell us about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network.
That's right. Pandas Talking Games is the one I'm going to talk about today. It's been a while since we talked about them. Phil and Sen to answer your questions about RPGs from the perspective of one-shots and campaigns with some panda silliness. And if you listen to it, you will love it.
It is also its own kind of hive mind.
Yes,
if you listen to it, you will love it.
Absolutely.
One of us.
We should probably punch up the wording on that. We talk about things more than just in one shots and campaigns. That was kind of
we'll need to go through probably all of the blurbs and tweak things a little bit.
You're gonna need to modernize some of those. Some of those post pandemic are a little
stale.
Yep.
All right, so the chat room has been following along and engaged, but no actual like question-y type things. I thought of another hive mind, the Omega creatures from, and I can't remember the damn name of the movie now. It's Live, Die, Repeat was the tagline with Tom Cruise and
Edge of
Tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
I always forget the name of the movie because the big letters in the promos was always Live, Die, Repeat. So everybody calls it Live, Die, Repeat.
Because that's the name of the book, and that was the original name of the movie, and then they changed it to
of course,
Edge of Tomorrow because that made so much more sense.
Yeah, clearly. That was a nasty little hive mind.
Yes, it was.
Fun movie too, by the way. Even if you're not a Tom Cruise fan, he's actually fun in that. And Emily Blunt is just a delight, no matter what she's in.
I can watch anything with Emily Blunt. She's beyond delightful. Plus, if you really want to watch something funny, watch her interview with Stephen Colbert where they do the puke takes.
Oh, puke takes are great.
Oh God.
Emily Blunt's puke takes are fantastic.
And her husband does them too with Colbert and others.
Oh,
absolutely. He does, John Krasinski.
Yeah. God damn, I really hope that Marvel grabs them for Raven Sue.
Quick sidebar. They are definitely going to be in the MCU. We just don't know who they're playing yet.
I would be happy to see them as Reed and Sue, but I will be honest. I would have been plenty ecstatic if they just decided that Reed, Sue, and Johnny were all people of color. Like,
that's fine.
If they just were like not white people, and just because there is nothing about the Fantastic Four that requires any of them to be white.
No, right? Absolutely not.
They could. I mean, all you need is a good husband, wife, and brother, and then Grimm as the best friend.
Yep.
And they could be anybody.
Yep.
They
absolutely.
So if it winds up being Krasinski and Emily Blunt, that's fine. I love both of them; they're great. But if they wanted to just make them, just pick anybody else, I would totally be fine.
Yeah.
I just, I don't think it's. Reed is about stretching and brains, and any good actor,
anybody
will be
can be stretchy brains.
Yep.
Yeah, Scuttlebutt has it that Krasinski may actually have multiple roles because they supposedly have been working on deals with a whole bunch of people who originally read for parts and didn't get them to reprise those roles as multiverse versions.
Oh,
so like Tom Cruise as Iron Man from another universe, Krasinski as Captain America, and different people like that.
I could live with that. And then in which case, then I want Emily Blunt as alternate universe Black Widow.
Yes.
I would totally take Emily Blunt as alternate universe.
That's what the one solid rumor is, yeah.
Yeah, and that would be okay.
Strong rumor for Doctor Doom.
Yes.
Nothing confirmed yet, but strong rumor for Doctor Doom is Giancarlo Esposito from The Mandalorian.
From Mandalorian.
Moff Gideon.
Yeah. I would be very okay with.
I'm like, if he's Doom in the MCU, I'm good. I'm good.
There's a meme on running around the internet right now about how, like, whenever you're watching your favorite series and Giancarlo Esposito shows up as the enemy, you know that your main character's about to get fucked in 7 different ways.
Yeah,
as it always happens.
That would be great casting.
He would be
as Doom.
He would be good as Doom.
I mean, here's the thing, right? I don't want to get too far off or before we get back into the roundtable, but Doom is. There is a certain gravitas that you have to be playing Doom.
Yes.
Like, there are so many great Doom moments in the MC. Like, his arrogance.
That was their biggest failure in the 3 movies that they did. Their biggest failure with Doom was that people that they got to play Victor just had no presence.
I just saw one the other day. I think it was on Twitter, where Doom is talking to Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange is like, "You underwent the test of the Vishanti to save your mom." He's like, "You could have asked me. Like, you could have asked me and I would have helped you. Like, all you had to do was, tell me what had happened." and he looks at him and he goes, "Doom asks no man for help."
Yes.
Like,
There you go. That's Doom.
I have that book. That is Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange, Triumph and Torment with Mike Mignola as the artist.
Yeah.
It's an amazing book.
Yeah, he's just like, he underwent this like huge test and ritual because he just couldn't ask Doctor Strange to help him get his mom out of hell.
Yep.
A little bit
Like,
of toxic masculinity there.
Without going a sidebar, read that. What he does at the end tops that moment.
Yeah.
And is tied to it.
Yeah, he's Doom's an amazing character. That's like, and that's why they like, they gotta get somebody big and
Esposito would be great.
That choice would be a very good choice.
Yes. Yes, it would.
All right, so looping back in.
Yes.
We are going to continue our discussion about hive minds with our favorite roundtable question segment, starting with...
What's your favorite hive mind from either media, one from media, or one that you've GM'd or encountered while playing? I left this open because I wasn't 100% sure that we had ones that we had all played or run as GM, so...
Yeah.
Kind of like, what's your favorite hive mind?
I'll do two real quick. The first one, from media, Unity from Rick and Morty, is an amazing hive mind because she's both an ally and a possible adversary. Her presence on the world that previously had race riots and even worse meant that the characters had to confront the choice of free will versus genocide. The fact that she's there, and at first they're all appalled by, well, everybody but Rick is appalled by the fact that you take everybody's free will away. Once they get their free will back, the kids realize what horrible, horrible people this planet had.
Yes.
And that everything she did, that everybody was so much better initially under her control. And it was an interesting story. And then of course
it's a nice genre. It's a nice twist on the genre, right?
It is. It's
that the individuals are actually horrible people and that Unity actually makes it a utopia.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
It is also a very deep story, which is a thing that Rick and Morty is very good at sneaking up on you about toxic relationships.
Yes.
Yep.
Like at the end of that episode, you're like, wow, I actually just learned something. Like there's a deep lesson in this episode.
It has one of my favorite end scenes too. Just, it's amazing. Anyway, from games, when I ran D&D at college and I had my big multi-year, we had a group called the Subterraniacs, and they were basically the My V&D's universe version of the Moloids. They were the ones that lived underground, and they were actually several hive minds, each one with its own hive mind. They were basically anthropomorphic insects. Think giant man-sized ants and larger, but intelligent, but they were all a hive mind. Each hive had its own queen, and that queen was the hive mind for all of them. They all shared a mind. Whenever they were able to destroy the queen or disable her telepathic control, this caused problems because what happens when the drones, warriors, etc., suddenly have to deal with being severed from the mind? And what happens? Will they be assimilated by another queen? Will they just wander aimlessly? Some of them couldn't deal with the horrible freedom. And they were also something we could keep adapting as we went because they could just keep assimilating new hives and getting more mutations and such. It also allowed for some good role playing because we had the idea of what happens when you get a drone that suddenly has a mutation because it's a superhero game that has free will. Lastly, we had one of the groups who played a telepath, and her telepath was bonded with a hiveless subterranean. So she was a telepath and she was the hive mind for one individual and dealt with the role playing back and forth of having a creature that shared her mind, but technically had its own individuality, but still shared her mind. And you can play with those kinds of things. What happens?
Fun.
You know, what if you're in a game where you are a telepath and you suddenly telepathically link with a hive mind and see what it's like? You know, role play opportunities that's what I really look for. When I look at hive minds, I'm less interested in the waves of drones as I am with the role play opportunities. So, Bob?
Yeah, so I had to think about this one a bit, but I have always been a huge fan of the Brood from Marvel Comics.
Oh, good choice.
One of the very first runs of X-Men that I ever read, I got into Marvel Comics, into the X-Men, right after annual number 6, I think, where they took on Dracula which was interesting. And like, holy shit, Dracula. Like, what? But then they were out in space with the Starjammers and they ran into the Brood and everybody got fucked up. And I'm like, these things are terrifying. They're hard to beat. They implant you with embryos so that they can turn you into Brood. Like, it was like, oh my God, how are these heroes going to get out of this? And it's like, oh, look, Wolverine has a healing factor. It's fighting off the implant. I'm like, yay, go Wolverine, who was my favorite character at the time, underneath Spider-Man. Fair.
Goes without saying.
So yeah, the Brood were amazing when I first encountered them, and I'm like, I hope we get Brood in the MCU at some point, because I would love to see a giant throwdown with those.
I mean, the other person who kicks Brood ass on a cosmic scale was Carol Danvers when she was Binary.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's part of that. That's like the X-Men, like mid 160s that you're talking about from the Claremont run, where they're all implanted. And in fact, not only are they all implanted, once they are all rescued, they realize that Professor X is a Brood, and they come back home.
Yeah.
And bust up the mansion and fight. They wind up fighting the New Mutants.
Yep.
So that they can try to save Xavier before he turns full Brood.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Which, not to get too nerdy, but because of that, and he turns into the Brood, and the Shi'ar have to take him away to clone back his body, is why later in the 170s, 80s, he's able to walk and go to Secret Wars. Okay.
Yes.
Super nerdy. Gonna just tone that back for you there.
That's all right. All right, Phil.
Very many much comic books in those days. For me, from media, the Borg. Love the Borg.
Hard to beat the Borg.
I loved them in TNG. I love them even more when you get into finding out more about them as in Voyager, when they unpack it more. You start to kind of learn a little bit more about how they tick, things like that. So I like the Borg a bunch. And then from gaming, Conspiracy X, the Greys are a hive mind.
Yep.
And then as I was thinking about it, I remembered that part of our plot line was that the Greys could take a human and implant. So the Greys were an aquatic based race that had a bipedal form for non-aquatic environments. Which is why they, the big head little alien guys. But in Conspiracy X, all of their technology was organic, and it was like coral-like. Remember, they had they had different coral.
That was some of my favorite stuff.
Right. One of the things they could do. Oh, I think it's probably more of a puppet thing than a hive mind thing. They would implant coral into humans and use them. But I don't think that ever made them part of the hive mind. The Greys themselves were a hive mind. And in fact, you guys in a pretty cool campaign arc one summer dealt the Greys a terrible blow.
Oh, yeah.
And took them out of the campaign for a while after you blew up their big psychic lens that they were using to pull a comet out of its trajectory to slam into the Earth to end the planet.
We saved the world.
It was cool. That was good. Anyway, yeah, I dug them as well. All right. Jerry, what's our second question for tonight?
Okay. What do you think the biggest challenge is in running a hive mind or running against a hive mind? Bob?
So I had to unpack this a little bit. And at first I was thinking that it depends on the form of hive you're dealing with. If the drones are easily identifiable and distinct from humans, like they're bug aliens or whatever, then you can tell that they're there. You know where they are and you know what you're up against. But you've got to watch out because you can get overcome with that despair, like, oh my God, there's too many of them to take on. Like, we can't win, right? And we can't win is not good in a game unless that's the whole point of like a one shot. Like, you're going into this, we're playing a one shot. where it's overwhelming odds. You can't win, but you have to deal some kind of a blow or go out fighting or whatever. Like it's how you deal with that, like the Kobayashi Maru, the no-win scenario. Like if that's the goal, then fine. We can't win is fine. But otherwise, we can't win is not good. The characters need the chance to win. Then if you flip it and you've got like a hive mind that's like, taking over humans and you can't tell who the hive mind is and they're standing right next to you, now you've got the whole paranoia that everybody you run into is part of the hive. And those two things are actually not that different from each other when you kind of unpack it. It's like, oh no, there are so many of them. So you've got paranoia and despair that you have to balance out. And you don't want to get overwhelmed with that. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
I think those are
that's
good.
exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah, my biggest challenge with the hive mind is pacing the confrontation with the actual hive mind itself, right? Like there's a balance of, oh no, another round of drones. Like, because once you know they're drones, you're like, well, yes, I'm going to deprive them of this objective, but I'm not making any actual progress.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm just killing drones. And players will get kind of bored or blasé or annoyed about that. But also, if you stick the command and control part of the hive mind out where they can get to it, they will get to it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so it's a real pacing to make the drones interesting, scary, or make them paranoid about it, and give them some progress to get to the hive mind. But ultimately, at some point, you got to let, like all good adversaries, you got to let your adversary go, right? Like it's time. There's the time for the players to do away with your adversary.
Yeah. It's like letting your BBEG get away time and time again.
Yeah. Like imagine a campaign where all you do is fight Borg, but you never actually fight any of the command and control. Like you're just barely surviving against cubes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Like you will not enjoy that game.
It'll get boring.
Exactly. Like, I mean, eventually you're going to be like, well, what can we do to deal some real damage to this thing? And that's your pacing. Like you got to pace that out. And also it's how many times you hit them with drones, like, in a beat-like structure. Mm-hmm. I think the TNG did it really nice where the Borg, they show up in the Q episode and then they're gone for a while. Right? Yeah. Like episodes go by and then like whatever. And then all of a sudden one day it's like, oh, that city, it's gone. And you're like, shit.
Yeah.
Like they're back. And DS9 doesn't even touch them.
Yep.
DS9 never goes to the Borg. Well,
DS9 opens with the Borg.
Yeah. It opens
with Wolf 359. But I mean, that's all. They use it as a jumping off point, and then they're like, you did that already. We're gonna go over here and play, and that's where our.
And I actually think that one of the saving graces for Voyager is that that they actually put the Borg in, because nothing in Voyager, because they're in a separate quadrant, nothing in Voyager is familiar.
Yeah.
And so after a while, you're like, I know this is like part of Star Trek, but is it really? And then in season 5, when they throw the Borg in, you're like, oh yeah, like this is a thing we know about. Like this is Borg. Like,
yeah. Otherwise, it's Monster of the Week, Sci-Fi Problem of the Week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the problem is, I was going to save this for the conversation corner, but I'll say it right now, and then I'll kick it to Jerry. The thing is, Voyager lacks the serial storytelling of DS9, so it's more like TNG. But I don't think the characters are better than the TNG characters, right? Which is a problem, because I think the TNG characters are more interesting characters. Mm-hmm. I don't dislike the Voyager characters, but I don't love them. Like, anyway, we'll talk about it in the future. We'll talk about it when we get into Voyager. Watching Voyager. All right, Jerry, what's your challenge on the hive mind?
Mine is basically keeping them from being too powerful with the Borg. One of the reasons the Borg have never interested me as a villain is that they were just so overwhelmingly powerful. It never really seemed to beat them. I haven't seen Voyager yet, so that's a little different. But also keeping them in a game varied enough that they're interesting to encounter again. If you just encounter the same drones over and over again, that can be very boring for the players. It's like when you play a dungeon crawl and it's like, oh good, another room full of orcs. Yay, that sort of thing. It's also important early on for the heroes to be able to resist the hive mind. Whatever it is that the hive mind does to control their minions and make life difficult for the heroes, have it early on that the heroes have some way to resist that so that they don't have that paranoia of, oh my God, we're going to be assimilated at any given time, and they don't have any reason to distrust each other. I think that all comes in. But it's also going to depend a little bit on the genre and whether the hive mind can take over others. The Borg are a very different threat than the bugs from Starship Troopers. Nobody's worried the bugs from Starship Troopers are going to, sneak into a human club. Yes, I am, fellow human here with my 4 legs. Because there's no way they can look like humans. The Borg can. And if they have to take over others, you have to pace that takeover properly so that the heroes are going to have a chance to react and plan. Just like Bob said, if you get to the point where they just don't trust anybody, and players can often flip that switch early on,
yeah.
It becomes a problem, and it very quickly can lead to the kind of paranoia that can derail the campaign entirely.
Yeah,
I agree.
Because then they start seeing every weird nuance as, oh my God, that person's been assimilated,
yeah,
and that becomes a problem. So they're difficult to run that way.
The tricky part about the Borg in TNG is that their initial introduction is done because Q wants to show Picard that humans are not the apex species of the galaxy, right? So he shows them something more terrifying than they can imagine. And then the problem is once you've written that in, right, like every future writer has to make the Borg as difficult as the initial encounter, right? So they start off as being too large. I will say that I think the most interesting thing about the Borg is not the Borg, it's what it does to the Federation.
Yes.
Because Wolf 359 is the event that causes the Federation to stop just making exploration vessels and start making warships. Which is why when we get to the Dominion War, the Defiant exists, and so do other attack craft, because that was the response to the Borg invasion, was that we can't just have ships out there looking around trying to, shake hands and snog with aliens. We gotta also have something that punches back. And in fact, if you've ever seen the patch for the Defiant development group, which is like out there, which has got, like it looks like a cartoon Defiant with a mouth on the front of it. Its catchphrase is assimilate this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well played.
Seriously, super nerdy about this shit.
Super nerdy. Nothing wrong with that.
All right.
So, question 3. What is your secret sauce when it comes to hive minds? Phil?
For me, the link, right? I think that making the link is interesting is going to be the most interesting part of the hive mind, because it is definitely the thing the players should try to attack. Because even if you can just temporarily disrupt the link, it can be the kind of cool thing that you set up in an adventure, right? Like, hey, we got to get through this line of drones in order to get to the hive mind. We need to go on this like side quest to get this, parts to build this thing that's going to disrupt the link that's going to let us fly through and get to the hive mind, right? Like, there's a lot you can do if you've really done a good job of coming up with the link and how it works. And I'm not saying you have to know like components how it works, but you need like your link should have its own internal logic, consistency. It should be a puzzle that can be solved, right?
Yep.
And that I think is, for me, designing hive minds, like putting the extra work into the link is going to help you make a really good arc for your hive mind.
For me, it's getting the players involved with viewing the drones, either to show the horror and strangeness of the drones, or to show how odd it is to have the loss of individuality. And then later on, try to give them at least one good discussion with the hive mind itself, with the drones or with the controller itself, for some sort of great role-playing session, where you get to have the players have a chance to figure out what is the hive mind's motivation, what is its goal, everything that gets involved in a good role-playing discussion. Now in a horror role-playing game, that's less needed, because in that the hive mind is basically going to probably just try to assimilate the players instantly. But in other role-playing games, you're going to have things where you can have a lot of fun with playing off that. Some of the best interactions in Star Trek so far have been things like what happens when the Enterprise talks to Hugh.
Oh, such a great episode.
Exactly. So, just
at the very least, you have to give your hive mind. You have to give the controller the monologue.
Yeah.
Let them do their monologue.
Yeah.
I think one of the creepiest things about the interacting with the drones in TNG is when they beam aboard the cube and the drones don't even pay any attention to them.
Yeah, walk right past you, don't care.
Right, like literally it is a sign of like how insignificant it treats individuals, right? Because the drones are just like, they clearly see them.
Yeah.
But they're just like, yeah, whatever, and they like walk past and they just, until like they do something, and then they send like a couple of like, secure drones to try to stop them. But it's terribly disturbing. Like, imagine you're a PC party and you teleport into this dungeon and like a group of orcs just walk past you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, they don't even pay attention to you because they literally don't think you're a threat to them.
Yep.
Or you're not a threat to the thing that is thinking for them.
Yep.
Right? Like, that's it's a creepy moment. And I think those Locutus episodes, when they go to rescue Picard from the thing, it's like its own little horror show. Like, it's like a little, you've got body horror stuff going on, the way assimilation works.
Yep.
You've got this kind of terror in terms of how indiscriminate they are about, humanity. Like, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good. I like that. Yeah. And the stuff with Hugh is just, and not only the stuff with Hugh, but then the follow-up, that season finale episode, when you find out that when they release Hugh with individuality back to the ship, it creates complete and utter chaos.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then opens the door for lore.
Anything that's going to give you good role-playing opportunities, because after all, we are playing role-playing games.
Yeah.
Surprise. So, good on that.
Stuff.
All right, so that's our segment on the hive mind.
Yeah, we hope the next time you're thinking about using a hive mind in your game, that this will give you some tips and pointers, be some help.
Yep. So now we're going to check in with the chat room one more time before we head over to the conversation corner. And what we've seen over there, we've had a couple of discussions. The chat room seems to be fascinated with the idea of the founders in DS9.
Yeah, absolutely.
And their own special hive mind.
Yeah, they're their own special thing. They're fascinating.
I love the founders. I love the founders. I love the Jem'Hadar, which is another interesting type of adversary, right? The Jem'Hadar are, it's weird.
They're like hive drones, puppets, but they're not part of the mind.
They are and they aren't, because
they're controlled by the mind. But they don't know. They don't fanatics. share the. Yeah, they're like religious fanatics almost. Yeah,
they're fanatics, right? They're not controlled. They're like, if you listen to some of the really good Jem'Hadar episodes, right? They would never question a founder, because why would you question a god? But they they follow the Vorta because they're supposed to, until sometimes they don't.
Yeah, they don't really care for the Vorta that much, but they are controlled. I would argue that they are, because they think they need the white.
In that respect, they are controlled, right? So they're metabolically controlled.
Yeah.
Because they're enslaved to having to take the white.
Yep. Chemical dependency.
And that's also really interesting, because that becomes a point of weakness, right? That where white is manufactured? Can you disrupt that kind of thing? And then that episode, which we watched just a couple weeks ago, where they crash land on the planet and the Vorta's running out of white.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And, you know, he's like, I'm got to send these guys to kill you, but I'll tell you where they are.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Good times.
That's an interesting side thing, because what starts out is the strength that the founders have over the Jem'Hadar very often becomes the very thing that the Federation turns on them over and over again.
Yeah. And what's interesting about the Jem'Hadar is that while they're not directly puppeted, like there's not a mind control thing that has them, and there is a metabolic thing to keep them in check, they also have drone-like things. They don't have very expansive personalities.
Nope.
They don't engage in recreation or fun. They don't sleep. They don't dream. They don't eat.
They have a strict hierarchy. You know, I'm the first.
Yep.
Right. Like they're disturbing because they feel like drones.
Yep.
But then you get like a couple episodes, like the one where Bashir and Miles crash land on the planet.
Yeah.
And then they're not drones, right?
Yeah.
Like it's in a way, it's like even better than the Borg. The Borg are so uniform and robotic, and that's terrifying in their own right. But the Jem'Hadar are like this weird juxtaposition of like, they're kind of individuals.
Mm-hmm.
They're drones until we don't want them to be drones, and then they're just like, oh, that's even worse.
And they don't live very long.
Nope.
Like, you know, like what was it? The one was saying like, you know, like living to 20 something years is like an extraordinary feat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like most of them were like 5 or 6 years old. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They spin them up real quick.
They grow fast. They mature. It's a really interesting, combination because they display very drone-like properties. And then they have these moments where you're like, they are very much not just drones.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden they turn and they are again.
Yeah.
Right. Like that scene that scene where the Vorta marches them out onto the field. Right. Cisco comes down. He's like, this is an ambush. The Vorta betrayed you. And he's like, I know.
Yeah.
He's like, but we can help you. We can put you into stasis. And he's like, yeah, no, like we're going to attack you.
We obey our orders because that's what we do.
Yeah. Like, yeah, right. And then, you know, it's like this terrible victory for the Federation, for Cisco, right? Like they just massacre him, and like
obedience is victory, and victory is life.
And it's just, I don't know. It's a very interesting dichotomy.
Yeah, they're good bad guys.
It's good writing. It's just good writing.
Yeah. Very good.
All right. Well, what do you say we bounce into the conversation corner?
Yeah, let's do. Let's do
a little. Doom, 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 doom. It's one of my favorite little tunes. All right. So, welcome back to the conversation corner, where we haven't been in like 5-6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not make it too long.
No.
Highlights.
Yeah, highlights. To sum it up, we've been away for a while. During the course of the hiatus, with a very few exceptions, all of my weekly games got played. There were a couple of them where we didn't make sessions, but most of them got played. So we got our games of Numenera, Forbidden Lands, Dresden Files, what is it? Band of Blades, which is going very, very well. Enjoying the hell out of that game. So I got in all those. Christmas for me was pretty much just like any other day in COVID land, with the exception of a Hangouts call with my family for breakfast on Christmas Day. So that was nice. And I mentioned earlier, I finished up all of the animated Star Wars shows. So now I'm watching Avatar The Last Airbender. Season 3 of Discovery is amazing so far. Only a couple episodes left.
I'm caving soon after Voyager. I think I'm just getting CBS All Access.
One of us.
Yeah.
Season 2 of The Mandalorian, amazing. If you want to see it and you haven't seen it yet, watch it. Yeah. Good stuff, especially the last episode.
Yeah.
Oh, there is a whole set of TikToks that people made of their reactions of watching the last episode of Mandalorian.
Yep.
It's so full of joy. Like
it's
people screaming at their TVs. Like,
Phil, do you have Amazon Prime?
Yes.
You get CBS through Amazon Prime, CBS All Access. It's cheap.
Oh, okay.
And it includes a whole bunch of other stuff that's tied into that.
Okay. Cool.
So
your mileage may vary because Jerry got HBO through Amazon and I did not.
Yeah, that's HBO, not CBS All Access.
Right, but I mean, like it's not everybody's Amazon Prime account is not equal to the next guy's Amazon Prime account.
Yes,
because you got HBO included with it. I did not. I have to pay extra for it.
Yeah, and the Amazon Prime and the HBO that we have is HBO Max, but does not include Wonder Woman for some reason.
Well, Wonder Woman, if you're not already a subscriber, you have to pay for it. So you're a Prime person, so you're not an HBO subscriber.
Yeah.
You've got it through a third-party channel. Yeah, that's why. So,
and I've been holding off because I've heard very mixed reviews of that.
I have heard both. I've heard, oh my God, it's so good, to oh my God, this is shit. It's typical DC Warner Brothers bull. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, that's not encouraging to hear both sides like that.
I've heard a lot of mixed reviews, and some of the stuff I've heard have been from people whose opinion I normally trust, and that's why it's been so disturbing. So I think I'm going to hold off on. Plus, I got burned buying Mulan. It was okay. It wasn't Mulan live action wasn't bad, but it was very meh. You know, it wasn't worth purchasing separately. Yeah. So I'm holding off on that kind of stuff. But but I Mandalorian was great.
Yeah.
When does season 3 Cobra Kai comes out this week? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes, January 1st.
It got moved,
which is why I'm working my way through season 2 finally.
I thought you said that already. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. And I'm I think 2 or 3 episodes from the end.
Oh.
So
wait till you get to that ending.
Yeah.
By the way, did any of you notice? Did you recognize Daniel's wife?
No.
I recognized Daniel's wife later, but where did you recognize her from?
I looked at her. I said, I know who she. Like I've seen her before, so I quick looked her up. She's Sheldon's sister from The Big Bang Theory.
Yes. Okay. I happened to be watching The Big Bang one night, and Sheldon's sister was on,
and you're like, wait a minute.
I was like, wait a second. I'm like, she looks very familiar. Yeah, I found her the other way.
Yeah,
she's great. She's great in that show.
Yeah, she is. Yeah. And it's been chug along, do your thing. Work's been nice and mellow. And then the last thing I'll say is every once in a while you get to see something on the Twitters or in the internet world where just within the last day there was a video of beavers curling. So the little critter animal beaver pushes a stone, then jumps on it and rides it while the other one hits the broom. And then, I mean, it's glorious. And then glorious in a completely different way, there's a video of a seriously racist young man who is being a total bastard in a convenience store until finally the person he's antagonizing takes the can of Twisted Tea and just smacks him upside the head. It's glorious. Glorious.
Yes, it is.
It's a very uncomfortable video to watch.
Yes, it's very disturbing until the conclusion. And if you see the right version, there's a version out there where as soon as the smack comes, then the person who cut the video mixes it with a Dave Matthews Band song. I want to say it's Ants Marching, but I could be wrong. And it's just like you get to see the smack multiple times, and it's just like, and the music, and it's like, yeah, that's a fitting ending.
Yeah, it's I mean, it is peak 2020 , right? For just shitty human behavior.
Always punch the racists and the Nazis.
But I also like punching of Nazis and racists. So I'm of mixed feelings about it. I saw it. I appreciated the ending.
Yeah, I don't
encourage
usually
anyone to run out and watch
of violence,
it.
but I'm like, yes, this deserved it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I could watch that Richard Spencer video of that Nazi getting punched all day. That's great. I like that one. Anyway,
yeah, but that's it for me.
Or Buzz Aldrin knocking out the guy who's the designer is also so, yeah.
I walked on the fucking moon.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the guy. There's a 3-panel. I saw this. It's an act in three tweets or something. There was a review for Cyberpunk 2077 that William Gibson made some comment about.
Yep.
And this guy goes off about like, what is this? Like, what do you know about Cyberpunk? And
I
then
love
there's
these people
like,
that don't know what the fuck they're talking about in a thread where the person who is like one of the foremost authorities and has a right to say what they say, and they're like, "No, you're full of shit." It's like
the guy's like, I don't know. He's like, it doesn't seem like you know very much about Cyberpunk. And then there's like the Wikipedia entry of
yes,
William Gibson, one of the pioneers of the Cyberpunk movement. Like, shut up.
Yeah, genius is all. All right, what
Talking
about you?
Cyberpunk, Jer?
Yeah.
Cyberpunk 2077. My wife bought me Cyberpunk 2077 for the Xbox One, and she bought me the 400 plus page strategy guide, which is good for me because right off the bat, I do not play video games to be super challenged. I play video games to explore the world and shoot Nazis or whatever the in-game equivalent to that is, in this case, the corporations. So when I get into a room and there's like, oh, there's a puzzle. 2 minutes in, if I haven't figured it out, I'm like, let's go to strategy guide and just go to my other day.
Yeah.
I have not found it now. Mind you, the patch for the Xbox meant that when I started up, it took 4.5 hours to download and patch the game before it started.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I had off yesterday, and that was fine. But I have not encountered I played it all day today, and I have not encountered a single glitch in the game. It's been fun. It's been entertaining. A little too much cinematic at the beginning for me, but I'm a player who doesn't like long cinematic scenes. So, I want to get me my character creation. I want to be shooting bad guys within like 5 minutes.
If I was into playing video games, I would not want to have huge, long cinematic cutscenes. I'm here to play a game, not watch a movie. Those are two distinct things.
They're slightly interactive. They're not like The Witcher where they're just watching stuff. You are following a character around, learning what's going on, but you don't actually pick up a gun for about 25 minutes in the game. Then in the tutorial is excellent because you just keep doing the tutorial until you get good at it. You can go back and do it again. You can open the tutorial up at any time. It's a Militech smart chip. So if you decide, hey, I just don't have hacking down, you can go back in and do the hacking tutorial over and over again until you learn how to do it right. So that, I think, is a really strong thing. I suck at driving the car. I think
they said the driving controls are pretty tough in that game.
They're not, but something that they did very well with the driving is, if you get your car in an area you can't deal with, anytime you're outside, you can walk around the corner, hit a button, and your car will come to you. So it just shows up at the curb. So if you get the car stuck in someplace you can't get out of, jump out of the car, run so it's no longer in view, and call it to you, and there it is. And the trunk of your car is keyed into all the other safe houses. So anything you put anywhere in one of these places is also in your trunk and vice versa. So you're never without gear. They did a lot of nice little learning things. From a visual standpoint, it's beautiful. So it's like an Ender trunk. Yeah, exactly. It is an Ender trunk. It is beautiful. It is definitely not for kids. The gun controls aren't difficult to work with, and there are some neat little things you can do in combat and sneaking up and stuff like that. I've just been having a good time. There's a couple of the puzzles that I have had a lot of trouble with, because things don't glare out at you. Like, you're in a room and you need to find something, it's not going to be glowing orange on the table. If you get up real close to it, it might be outlined in blue or yellow, but you're not going to walk into a room and know immediately where you have to go to find something. But that's a subset of the game, and the guide will tell you where to go to find that kind of stuff. I'm sure it'll be online too. But I would say that I have not encountered any glitches with it at all. I've only died 3 times, and 2 of those because I jumped off of things that were way too high because I wasn't paying attention. I went to go down a set of stairs, and at the same time, I had to jump down the flight, mistimed it, and jumped off the end of the stairs and fell 14 floors. That didn't go so well for me. But yeah, I would say 2077 has lived up to a lot of the hype, and because they've put so many patches into it, it seems to be doing well. We haven't played, I'll be honest, I know that Bob and Phil's games have been rolling around really well. Most of the games that I have been involved in for the last couple of weeks have been canceled, and so we haven't done a lot of it. Eberron, though, the one I'm running with Chris and Bridget and Schmitty, has been rolling along very nicely, and we've had a lot of good role-playing segments. The last session was interesting because the players short-circuited the end of the adventure, so there were some things they could do but didn't have to, so there was a lot of kind of exploring what they wanted to do next and role-playing and delving into personalities. And I'm really enjoying that side of the game because they've all developed very intricate characters, and we're able to do little side plots and interludes and stuff in the middle of the storyline before they get on to the next, the end of the adventure, which is nice. Lastly, I've been catching with a bunch of old movies. As much of a horror fan as I am, I had never seen John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh,
glorious.
A classic.
And I'd seen the original from the 1960s.
Sure.
And I saw the prequel that they did a couple years ago, which was also good, but never saw. Really well done.
Yes.
Got to watch the movie Underwater, which is the Kristen Stewart movie. That's it's called Cthulhu Underwater, plain and simple. That one, not so, it was decent plot, suffered from really bad direction and way too much. All these characters are wearing identical suits. Nobody knows what's going on. And the sound quality wasn't great. It was tough to hear people. If you're going to watch Underwater, I wouldn't say don't watch it, but definitely have subtitles on, because there are times that we had the volume up all the way and couldn't understand what people were saying because of all the background noise. But it was good. The two that were surprised me, we watched for Christmas every year is always bacon sandwiches and mimosas followed by movies. We watched Bloodshot with Vin Diesel, which turned out to be a perfectly good superhero action movie. The special effects were better than DC. And they had decent characters. As long as Vin Diesel wasn't talking, his character was really good. But that's Vin Diesel. You're going to get that with all his movies. The action scenes were good. The plot was fairly easy to follow, but had a couple of twists and turns in it. And they had enough threatening bad guys that it wasn't just going to be, he gets to the end and beats up a bunch of I mean, there are other, right off the bat, there are other augmented people that have different augmentations than him. So you get to see a couple of those. And lastly, Fantasy Island, which everybody told me was a really bad movie. It's not a great horror movie. It's a really fun thriller movie. It was kind of touted as a scary thriller because it's from Blumhouse. I thought it was a lot of fun. They gave you a bunch of characters, put them on Fantasy Island. And if you ever watched the old TV show with Ricardo Montalban, you know that you come to the island for your fantasy and you get your fantasy, but it's never quite what you expected. And you learn a little lesson about yourself. You know, I want to be a superhero for my son. And you find out that, you know, your son always thought you were a hero anyway, that kind of thing. This is, you come to the island, you get your fantasy, and it goes really bad. But there's an underlying plot as to how and why. Why is everybody's fantasy going bad? Why are they all there at the same time? And why does Mr. Rourke seem to be deliberately setting up rules and then twisting them? And it's a fun little thriller movie. It'd make a really good adventure.
So, Jerry, I've been to dinner with you before.
Yeah.
I can't imagine you on this fantasy island. Like, I paid for this fantasy. Like, yeah. I had some very specific requirements for this fantasy.
This fantasy is not going the way I paid for.
I'd like to speak to the manager about this fantasy.
So that is one of the rules of the island, is that one fantasy per person, and once the fantasy starts, you must see it to the end regardless. And there are other rules involved, and there are some points where you
got
begin
rules around here.
Well, and I will warn you, if you watch the movie, you're going to start seeing that the island seems to be cheating with the rules. There's a reason for that, and you find out at the end. So there's a lot. It's a fun movie. They had a couple of twists and turns. We're genre savvy, so some stuff you're like, oh, I know what's going on. Nope. They deliberately gave you some subtle hints that pulled the genre savvy people off to one side, and then give it to you. So it's a fun movie. I would say I wouldn't pay top dollar to see it, but if it's streaming somewhere and you have an hour and a half, I would say watch it, because it definitely has some good. It would make a great one shot for a number of different role playing games. First of all, and the acting is good and the stories are fun, and I really hope they do a sequel to it. It didn't do great at the box office, but it's Blumhouse, so those movies don't cost that much. And
you never know. They may go back to the well.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't actually looked at the numbers, but generally Blumhouse movies tend to be very low money input. You know, they're made for $20 million. They make $100 million. Everybody's happy because that's fine. That's all they need to make. So they make a lot of them.
Yeah.
So that was what we did so far. How about Phil? What have you been up to lately?
I've been slowly reading my way through Cyberpunk Red. I'm nearly at the end of the nearly at the end of the book. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I still want to run it. I would actually like to run a game, an arc, or a campaign of Cyberpunk. I like it enough. I'm still struggling a little bit with the world, the setting for it. I'm getting there. I think I understand what they're getting at, because it is tied into their canon. So some shit has happened in the world. To be clear, Cyberpunk Red, I think, is 2040 or 2045, so it is not 2077.
Right.
So Night City is a little different. Some shit has happened post the Fourth Corporate War and all that stuff. Anyway, I'm working my way through that. I also finished reading Gibson. I reread The Peripheral by Gibson, which is a very excellent book. I enjoyed it a lot. And started his latest, which came out in January, Agency, which I originally wanted to get at the beginning of the year, and I didn't because I wanted to reread The Peripheral. So I took time and finished reading The Peripheral, started reading Agency. I like Agency a lot. It starts off a lot faster. The Peripheral has a slow start to it, and then kind of picks up, which is okay because in true Gibson style, you don't really understand what's going on, and it takes about halfway into the book for them to finally tell you, like for the characters to finally explain what's actually happening. Agency is the second book in this trilogy, which I don't know if this trilogy has been named yet. I'm calling it the Jackpot Trilogy. So if you've read The Peripheral, that'll mean something. But Agency starts off a lot faster. And in the first couple chapters, I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. Like some shit's happening really quick here. I've been playing Minecraft. I've been playing this solo instance of Minecraft and just kind of chipping away at it, having fun. Like it's a cute little base that I've built, and I'm definitely I'm heading into late stage gameplay. So this world isn't going to last for too much longer. I'm going to get a couple more things done, and then I'm going to wind up starting to look at winding down that instance. I watched season 1 of Designated Survivor. I liked season 1 a lot. It was like a cool mix of The West Wing and 24. But the writers actually wrapped that up in the end of season 1. And then season 2 is like kind of The West Wing. And I was like, but not as good as The West Wing. And I could just watch The West Wing. So yeah. I enjoyed season 1 a lot. But season 2, I just kind of dropped it after that. We played some Numenera. We've played some Forbidden Lands. Also had a quiet Christmas. Stayed hunkered down, did not have my parents up. Opened presents on Zoom with my parents. But it was good. It was a perfectly fine Christmas, and did a number of the Christmas tradition things to kind of make it as less weird as possible. So had my eggnog, watched Die Hard with the boy. Had steak pie, all of those things. So, all good stuff.
Steak pie sounds interesting.
Not as interesting as it sounds. It's Scottish food, so it's basically meat and potatoes.
You know my taste. It doesn't sound like a bad thing at all.
It's true. You probably would enjoy steak pie quite a bit. Anyway,
I got a Gibson question for you. Have they ever made I have only read one Gibson book, and that was 20 some years ago.
Sure.
Have they made movies of any of his books?
Well, they made one of Johnny Mnemonic. I wouldn't recommend it, but
I've seen that one. Okay.
And I think New Rose Hotel or something, which was a short story that he wrote, was was made into a movie, and I think that was actually pretty well received. It's a pretty small movie though, but no, not any of his other stuff.
Okay, just I was wondering that,
which is a shame.
There was talk for a while of someone working on a Neuromancer script. Nothing ever really came about it. Billy Idol made an album called Neuromancer, which was interesting. But movies, no.
I would say, I mean, Gibson's interesting in that he writes trilogies of books. The trilogies are kind of loosely connected to one another. So if you've read Neuromancer, that's called the Sprawl trilogy. And then there's the Bridge trilogy, the Blue Ant trilogy, and what I've now just called the Jackpot trilogy. I don't know if that's the actual name for it or not. But yeah, it depends on what you like. I mean, the Sprawl trilogy is my all-time favorite. But I really like this new one. This new trilogy is really interesting. It has
It's awesome.
It's got a cool premise to it about time travel and stuff that I'm kind of digging. Anyway, we should probably wrap up. We're about to scrape the 2-hour mark, and that's pretty long. So
Yeah.
we should
Time
pack up
for
and head on out to the after show for a little bit.
then.
But first, let's do some Patreon shoutouts.
Yes, Patreon shoutouts. Thank you for being our patrons. Savannah Sizer, who was in the chat room earlier. Scott Ryder, Steve Bissonette, Steve Radabaugh, T. Coustic, Theodore Atkinson, Victor Wyatt, Noah Bond, Alice Kira, and Austin Lemke. Thank you all very much for being our patrons, and thanks to everyone for listening.
Hey, as a reminder, if you're free on Tuesday evenings, we would love to have you here at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time. Join us live right here on Twitch. Hang out with our awesome chat room in the chat room for life. Ask us the occasional question while we're doing the show.
And if you can't make the live show, check out our podcast each week, wherever you get our podcasts. And take time to listen to some of their shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, Bone Sword Obsidian, the FM Gamers, Pandas Talking Games, the Gnome Cast, John Goo Hustle, She's a Super Geek, The Lounge, and Bonus Experience. You can and should also check out our sibling podcast, Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
Yes, indeed. After you have found the link and before you sever it, use that link to send us some feedback. You can reach us directly via the old-fashioned email, mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Check us out on Twitter, where the show and the network is at misdirectedmark. He is Robert M. Everson.
Yay.
He is GM Gerrymander, and I am DNA Phil.
Hey, if you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Down with D&D, and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. Excuse me. For probably the last time on this show, She's a Super Geek is at patreon.com/SassGeek. I have no idea what's going to happen with the Patreon, but the show is over. Zhanghu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhanghu Hustle, and Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Down with D&D, and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, and the Pandas Talking Games bonus outtakes, and other special releases when we have them.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production. The media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop!
We out.